Richa. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I feel so lucky of holding your new book, Cyber Sexy, in my hand. Can you please introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your book?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking me to do this, Esther. My name is Richa Kolpadhe, and my book is called Cyber Sexy, Rethinking Pornography. And it's a book about pornography and online sex cultures in South Asia and beyond.
So we talked about yesterday, and you had an amazing panel discussion about how your book is connected to sexuality, pleasure, desire, technology, danger. How all these concepts are coming together in your book?
So maybe I'll tell you a bit about how it came about, which is that, so I live in India at the moment, and in 2013 we had two proposed bans on pornography. But actually the last decade has seen various bans on pornography and a variety of sexual censorship, particularly on the internet and across the world. So I sort of started off from the perspective of, okay, so if there is a porn ban anywhere in the world, what will get banned? Because of course we have what's considered traditional pornography, like, the big websites, industry produced porn and so on. But there's also this vast array of sexual expression happening online. So I'm talking about cam sites and photographs and things from the queer community, the BDSM community. There's just this like amazing array of things going on. And I started to wonder, okay, so what counts as porn and who actually gets to do the counting? So it was starting from this perspective of looking at the interplay of desire, sexuality, porn, and pleasure, and how that's all sort of being governed by systems of power, both online and offline.
You mentioned that the book has been born out of especially a South Asian and Indian context. How does it have a global relevance?
So it's the thing about the internet, isn't it? That like it's so in many ways territory agnostic. So irrespective of where you live, hopefully you can access the internet, and many of us end up seeing the same internet. So things that happen in one part of the world end up influencing the internet in other parts of the world. So for example, now in America, they have that massive FOSTA-SESTA Anti-Sex Work Act, but that's meant that sexual representation is getting curtailed everywhere around the world. So I think because of the nature of technology, because of the nature of the online world and the way that it crosses geographical borders, I think that's where Cyber Sexy fits in. I hope that's where it gets in.
I cannot wait to read your book. But if you can have one takeaway message that you would be really your most important one in the context of sexuality, pleasure, consent, what would be your takeaway message? What is the takeaway message of the book?
Well, I don't know if this is the takeaway message, but to answer your question around these, sort of an important message for me is that I think a lot of the criticisms around porn and sexual representation end up being these sort of vague things around, objectification, or this vague sense that porn is bad for women. But really what I think needs to be at the heart of this debate is consent. And I think that this is especially important when you move to the online world as well, because what happens is that now with technology, you need to have consent at 3 levels. So it needs to be at the level of the sex, at the level of the filming, and also at the level of the sharing and the uploading. And just because you have consent at one of these levels doesn't mean that then you have consent at all of them. Like that's obviously how all consent works, right? And I think the other thing that I really do try and bring in through Cyber Sexy is the idea that all these sexual interactions and expressions that are happening online are also happening in this massively unequal space. And I don't just mean gender inequality. I'm also especially talking about the fact that what mostly you and I experience as the internet are a handful of private corporations, and they are mining our data, including our sexual data, for their profit. And I think that this very much has implications for sexual consent online. But going forward, and perhaps as my final message, is that I really think we need to have pleasure, agency, and desire at the hearts of these conversations. Because yes, the situation is very difficult, and it is particularly difficult for women and sexual minorities, but we just can't tell people to pull back, Like, we are online, we are watching porn, we are expressing our bodies and our desires and our sexualities on the internet. And this is the world that we live in today. And I think that if we start from a place of pleasure rather than a place of fear, then I think that is how we will build a more equal and feminist world, both online and offline.
We really appreciate your contribution, and thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.